Well, this is very exciting. It is the beginning of a brand new series, a relationship with Robyn Priest. You have known Robyn to be on the Hue virtual chat, now joining us on Hue at Home with a new series called Let's Get Our Hue-Man Back. So without further ado, I am going to throw it over to Robyn and maybe do a little introduction for our guest here today.
Hi, Tracy, and hi, everyone. Thanks for letting us have this discussion. I just want to give you a little bit about what this series is, and then I'll do an intro to our lovely guest today. It came from me wanting to say, when we talk about mental health, it really is just about being real and being in a conversation. And I think for me, it's just about getting our human back. It's about being with people and having conversations and realizing that we're not alone and that lots of people are dealing with kind of mental health issues on a scale of I'm doing really well today to oh my gosh, everything feels like it's falling apart. And I wanted to kind of reach out and bring some people to have a chat and talk about their life where maybe it wasn't that great at times and how they got through it and what they're doing now. And really, one of the things for me is talking about the essence of like sharing with each other and that peer support aspect. So I'm pretty excited today. Our first guest, Jana Couture, I've known her for a number of years and just a complete inspiration to me for what she's gone through personally and also in terms of with her family. So I might just throw it over, Jana, if you can tell us a little bit about like who you are and what you do now, and then maybe share a little bit about your story.
Yeah, so thank you, Robyn and Tracy, for having me join you today and have discussions. Just as Robyn had said, for me, getting our human back on and having real conversations with people is something that's very near and dear to my heart. So, a little bit about me: I'm an Indigenous woman that has lived quite a life myself, with quite a background of trauma and mental health challenges. I currently am working as a peer support worker, and I'll get into that a little bit later on, but I guess along my journey and during the course of the last 40 years of my life, I've really realized what was missing along my journey and what I was needing. And in those moments, way back when, and still sometimes now, when I suffer, I see the importance of peer support, the importance of being able to have conversations where people will listen to me wholeheartedly for who I am, having no judgments and just being there in that moment with me.
So, Jana, do you want to share a little bit with the viewers, a little bit of your kind of background, like where you were and kind of where you've come to now?
Yeah, I mean, if we go back to the beginning, I was a child. I was adopted as a child, and I didn't know up until recently that I was adopted from a mother who was part of the 60s scoop. And so growing up, my adoptive family, phenomenal, very supportive, loving parents, wonderful brother, couldn't have asked for a better family. But they also weren't given the proper information or any information on where I came from, my roots, any of that. So for 18 years, I didn't know where I came from, my background of any. I was a I was a child, I am a child survivor of sexual abuse. And so growing up, definitely had, I definitely had some struggles. I struggled with being able to maintain friendships. I struggled with being able to um, have close relationships with adults and trusting adults. And I guess ways that I would cope with that were unhealthy ways. So, you know, I always say I had such wonderful parents, and they always did everything and anything they could for me. And nobody could really understand fully what was going on. I couldn't understand what was going on. So as a teenager, I quickly fell into a lifestyle of using and abusing drugs. I, you know, turned to the streets, and I turned to people that I thought were people that cared for me and had my best interest at heart. Um, and they didn't, you know, it was, when I look back now, we were all suffering from something, things that were going on, and everyone was kind of looking for that sense of family. And for me, I don't know why I was always looking for it, because I always had it with my adopted parents. It was nothing I was ever deprived of. They never sort of walked away. They were always there. I think for me, being confused, being an adopted child, I just had a lot that I had to work through. So at the age of 17, I got pregnant with my first child. And that's where I kind of say I started my journey, a journey that I'm still on now. Um, I chose to start making changes. I chose to make changes that I knew were going to be in the best interest of myself and my child, because I didn't want my child being a product of, you know, I didn't want my child having to be adopted or having to be taken away. So I ended up going on to get my healthcare aid diploma. From there, I did some palliative care. And then I ended up working in the field with women in prison. I was in corrections for almost a decade. Really enjoyed my job, very much enjoyed my job. But during the course of that, 10 years, noticed the lack of empathy, the lack of understanding and education around mental health, around really the core issues that a lot of women face. And I started looking into things a little bit deeper, because I wasn't feeling like I was fulfilling what I could be doing while I was there. My job was an officer, and as an officer, you really don't. Sorry, my dog's gonna bark. As an officer, you don't really have the opportunity to sit and have heart-to-heart conversations with these women, which is something I very much enjoy doing. And so that's where I chose to look towards peer support. And so peer support for me, do we have to pause or no?
No,
It's
keep going.
okay. Keep going.
Okay, sorry. Peer support for me became known to me when one of my children, I'm a mother of three, one of my children was suffering some significant mental health challenges. And we had really utilized every system, every resource we could here in Manitoba. And so I ended up finding peer support when I was beaten, I was down, I was defeated. There was really nothing left that I thought was going to be helpful. And I remember the conversation that I had with the lady that I had my conversation with, and the feelings instantly of validation, the feelings of empathizing, and the lived story that I was provided with were such a relief for me to know that somebody else in this world was going through something similar to what I'm going through. Really made me feel human. It made me feel like I wasn't alone. It gave me hope. It gave me empowerment feelings that I could continue, because I really was deflated. I was really in a spot where I didn't think I could go on. We've done everything and we've tried everything, right? So for me, it was huge. I say peer support saved my life. I don't say anything ill towards doctors, but I've seen many doctors. I've seen many psychiatrists. We've seen many counselors, and everyone has a job, and everyone has an important job. When I was provided peer support, it was such a different and unique experience. And so now, myself as a peer support worker, I'm able to engage with folks without an agenda. I'm able to have these conversations, meeting people where they're at, and really listening and empathizing with what's going on for them. Not trying to change them, not trying to, tell them what to do or how to do it. Really just being there to have that conversation and let them know that somebody cares.
Wow. So what is your relation with Robyn then? I'm curious.
So Robyn has offered me peer support in the past, and I mean, I've done some courses with Robyn. I met Robyn at a time where things were still pretty rocky, and I quite often say things are still pretty rocky in my life some days. But Robyn became a very important person in my life, in the sense of Robyn's ability to really listen and just be there in moments that I didn't think I could go on. I didn't know what to do. I didn't think I could go on. I know that Robyn was there for one of my children at an extremely imperative moment where my child was going to take her life, and the conversation that Robyn engaged in with my child changed that. So Robyn is not only someone I look towards for peer support, but she's a very, very dear friend of mine, and holds a very special place in my heart.
Woo, Robyn. My thoughts are like, Jana's story is amazing. In your eyes, Robyn, what did you see in Jana that she could be this person that she is today?
I think what I saw in Jana is someone that wanted to make a difference in the world. In terms of the conversations I had with Jana when we first met, were about, I came through a lot, and like being able to share that, like her story about being able to talk with someone who had a similar story and gain courage and the ability to go after what she wanted, and to see her and the way she relates to other people is is a blessing. And so I was doing some work with Peer Connections Manitoba, who are formerly the Manitoba Schizophrenia Society, and we had a number of jobs coming up. They got a contract through the Manitoba government to deliver peer support at the Crisis Response Centre here in Winnipeg for people who are dealing with mental health crisis. And they're also doing some work in a Dauphin emergency room. And we had these jobs coming up, and I reached out to Jana and I said, I know you have this really secure career in corrections, but I think this is your calling. And Jana didn't hesitate to go after that. And watching her with individuals who are struggling themselves, or hearing about her connections with families, because as Jana said, she has a couple of kids who have struggled themselves and are still dealing with their own addiction and mental health things. Watching her be courageous and share her story and open herself up and be vulnerable and just sit with people is just, that's the piece for me about getting our human back on. That human connection makes the difference for people, a world of difference. So Jana, it's like this honor and privilege to be part of your life, and having that conversation with your kid, I will never forget that, because that changed me as well, being able to be in a conversation and like have someone change their mind. Not that my job is about trying to stop someone doing something, but just being able to be there and hear where she was at and sit in that conversation. Yeah. So it's amazing. It's a privilege being part of your life and having you be part of our business, because I know that sometimes you help us out with courses and stuff as well. So thank you.
Oh,
Thank you.
thank you. Thank you, both of you. And maybe just to wrap up, Jana, to you, words of wisdom for others out there, maybe going through the same thing that you went through. Help them.
Honestly, words of wisdom. It's a journey, and it's definitely not an easy journey. It's scary, it's terrifying, and allowing yourself to be vulnerable with others is something that I'm very much still in the process of getting comfortable with and doing. I can say though, with 100% certainty, the types of conversations and the types of interactions that somebody will have in a peer support situation will be very different than other types of conversations that you might find in, healthcare facilities, or even in crisis centers with the medical teams. Allowing yourself to be vulnerable, allowing yourself to share your story and tell your story, and listening to other people tell their story, for me is so healing. I had an interaction earlier today where a gentleman and I interacted, and his story was so healing for me that we both at the end of the phone call said, like, I've gotten something from you and you've gotten something from me. And that's what it's about, right? It's about being human and having that conversation, and just allowing yourself to speak from the heart and listen from the heart wholeheartedly, without any judgment, offering hope and self-determination for people, because that's a huge piece of it as well.
Oh. Well, thank you so much, Jana. And as always, Robyn, you're the master.
Thanks,
So I'd
Tracy.
say I've learned empowerment, self-determination, love, and hope. All human traits that we need to get back in our lives. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me today.